Hello, hello, my loves. How you doing? Dijana here from Dijana.org with the podcast Nova Wholistic. I'm here today to introduce a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful lady called Susanne, whom I have spoken to before, and I've been a guest on her podcast. And today I'm going to hold space for her to be her beautiful self. So let me introduce you to beautiful Susanne. Now, let me try your surname. Is it Kooijman? Kooijman?
Kooijman.
Oh, Kooijman. Okay. I see. I read that as a J, like as in English is a J as opposed to a Y sound.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Hello, my darling.
Hello.
Welcome.
What a wonderful introduction.
Hi.
I'm getting all shy here.
Oh, don't. How you doing? Welcome to
Very
Nova.
well. It's so good to see you and to be here. I love your podcast and I love you. So I'm happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that we've finally gotten around to recording this. For
Yeah.
those of you who don't know, I'm actually in Sydney, Australia, and Suzanne is in the Netherlands. So
Yes.
there's always an interesting time organization factor, right? That
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we've had to organize. But okay, what? So, in the spirit of Nova,
Mhm.
holistic. And in the spirit of sharing
Mhm.
your most authentic self at this time, in this moment of your life,
Mhm.
I, I'm really. Do you know what I'm most fascinated about in terms of this conversation? Where I'm
Mhm.
most drawn to start at, actually, is that it's fascinating to me that you are actually in the Netherlands. And it's not so much about the country, but the geographical location. Maybe it is about the country. I don't know.
Mhm.
But you have this extraordinary work that you do, spiritual work, holistic work. And
Mhm.
your podcast is about mental health. And
Yeah.
so all of these aspects of the way that you serve in the world are similar to mine, right?
Yeah.
I have never spoken to anybody from Netherlands before, and I've been doing this for a long time. So I guess what I'm so interested in
Yeah. Why
is
am I still in the Netherlands? No.
not that so much, more about how are you the
Mhm.
bright and shining light and spark in the Netherlands?
Mhm.
Tell me about your soul and why did you choose that?
Oof.
Why? Tell me about that. I know
Well,
this is like going deep straight
yeah.
away, but it's so
Yeah.
fascinating to me, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you for all the compliments, by the way. I mean, thank you very much. But yeah, in the Netherlands, of course a small country. All my roots are here, and yeah, I've lived in the same street even all my life. So
Wow.
I've my parents live across from me. I can walk to the window and wave at them. So it's very lonely. It's like I said, I have my roots here. I have all my friends and family here. But I've always felt the need to explore. So that's what you feel in me, in my spirit. I've always felt the need to explore. That's why I'm visiting Australia, in a month. I'm the only person like in my family who's going to Australia ever. So I've always
Wow.
felt that need to explore other countries, explore other religions, cultures. And I hope to, after visiting Australia and New Zealand, to go to Korea and Japan and maybe even live there for a while. So yeah, my radar, or like so to say, is a lot bigger than just the Netherlands. And yeah, I can't wait to explore more. But because I had my phobia for 10 years, I was hardly outside. I couldn't travel. So
Wow.
just yeah, just for recently, I'm exploring it a lot more. Yeah.
Isn't that so interesting? Because
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, at on the surface, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a family that sounds to like it's really kind of close knit and together,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then but you have this acute journey of spiritual awakening. The
Mm-hmm.
awakening part usually by design doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in discomfort. In
Mm-hmm.
and so
Yeah.
the dark night of the soul, the shadow work, and all of that stuff. And so if
Oh yeah.
you in the
All that
comfort,
goodness.
right? If there's that beautiful familial comfort, then how
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
how the spiritual
Yeah.
journey? What was that? What
Yeah.
happened? Do you mind
Yeah.
sharing?
Like you said, like growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone, of course. So
Mm,
I've been thrown out of my comfort zone quite a few times. At first,
okay.
when I was in my late teens, like early 20s, and I had my agoraphobia, where I was
Mm,
just basically living in fear every day. And I
wow.
didn't leave my house. And yeah, I was just constantly in panic mode. So that lasted for 10 years. So quite a
Wow.
while. And through intense therapy and literally step by step, I had to, because I was still living at my parents' house.
Right.
So I really had to take a step outside, like literally one step, and then another one and another. And then I would reach the end of the street and I'd go back of shaking and in fear. And then I would go walk a block and go back shaking in fear. So yeah, and that's, like I said, to actually overcome that. That was a journey of 10 years. And then most recently, about 9 years ago, I had carbon monoxide poisoning, which left me with a conversion disorder, which it actually means that it's a trauma-based disorder that my brain is sending the wrong signals to my body. So whenever I would feel overwhelmed, I would just have like almost like an epileptic type attack. And that's actually something that I'm still recovering from. But I have a feeling that it's almost it's almost there, almost recovered. I'm also in therapy for that, and it's going really, really well. But also that has been a long journey, and especially the last 2 years were spiritually awakening for me because I really had to learn to trust my body again because I wasn't
Mm,
trusting myself and I didn't really know before what was going on. And it was later that I found that, okay, I have something that is called conversion disorder. And I am now in active therapy for that. But before I didn't know what was going on. So I was like, okay, I can trust my body, I can trust my brain. It's like they're not functioning right or they're not communicating right to each other. But now that I know what's going on, that it's this feeling of overwhelm that sends the wrong signal from
mhm,
my brain to my body, and that the peace should come from my body. Because before I always thought I could think it away, like think the fear away, think the overwhelm away. And I just didn't have any connection to my body at all.
yeah.
Because I thought, okay, that's just, it's all about here. I need to fix what's going on here. And then I found that it's all about that connection and that
Mm,
like the peace and the calm should start from your body. And then that sends a message to your brain saying you're safe. And I say that to myself every day when I feel a bit overwhelmed. I should say, okay, like relax, calm your body, send a message to your brain from your body that you are safe. You are okay. You are safe in your body.
mm,
But that is a long, long 9 year lesson to be learned. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning.
mm.
But yeah,
Did you?
that's it. You grow.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't obviously last time we spoke in sort of this setting of podcast,
Mhm.
you were the host and I was talking about myself. So I didn't know
Yeah.
that about you. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think that this, second, the physical response where the
Mhm.
body's sending the signal to your
Mhm.
brain that you're not safe, or there's like an overwhelm or whatever, is a
Yeah,
direct, like it almost sounds like a post-traumatic response to
it
the
is.
agoraphobia,
Yeah, yeah, it
like
was.
a byproduct of, like
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
actually connected.
yeah. That's how my body responds. I'm a very
Mm,
sensitive person. I'm highly sensitive as well, so I feel a lot more than someone
yeah.
who's of course not high sensitive. So I tend
Mm,
to always be very like physical on how I react to things as well. So that's why
right.
when I did have my agoraphobia, I would get shake a lot and tense up and have panic attacks and so on. So I had very physical reactions to the anxiety and what was going on in my mind. So that's why this connection was made again, because I didn't trust
Yeah.
my body again. Same as with the agoraphobia, I didn't trust my body. So it's like they disconnected from each other, and I had to connect them again.
Reconnect to yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions about the agoraphobia?
No, of course. Go ahead.
Okay. So, how old were you when you developed, when you first started to notice
Mhm.
the symptoms? How did that, like, what was going on in your world at the time?
I was in school. I was about 16, 17.
Right.
And I was, like I said, I was always quite sensitive. And at the time, I not on purpose, but I didn't eat that much. So I would get dizzy spells. Like I
Yeah.
said, I didn't do that on purpose. I just didn't really give it that much thought.
It's a
Really.
teenage thing. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So, and then I would faint because I was just too dizzy and too, well, malnourished, really. And I didn't really take good care of myself, basically. And yeah, that's when that fear of, like, I feared the dizziness. I feared fainting. And so I started to fear what would happen when the phobia would arise again. And it was constantly there. So then that fear became also a constant.
Wow. And so that then developed into not wanting or being scared to go outside or leave your house or.
Yeah, yeah, I would.
Right.
I was still in school, but I would call in sick sometimes. My parents also were like, "What is going on with her?" you know. So I
Right.
would skip classes, and then I would attend school less and less. And I went to a special school, they call it here, the school for people who have either like a disability or mental health issues. And I went there for a few months, and I was so overwhelmed because there were kids who were aggressive, they had or ADHD, and there were handicapped kids, and I didn't. I was so overwhelmed there that my agoraphobia just got worse. So my parents just got rid. Were like, no, you have to. You're not at that school anymore. We have to get rid of that. And
Yeah.
then yeah, I stayed at home. I couldn't finish my school because of that.
Right. Wow. The
Yeah,
ripple effect. And, I mean, you're familiar with the language and empath, right? For the audience that
yeah,
doesn't know what an empath is, it's a highly acutely sensitive person to the
hmm,
environment, to energy, to other people, to crowds,
yeah,
to noises, all of those things.
yeah,
And
yeah,
this language of an empath is quite common for people that are on this spiritual journey. But for
yeah.
those that maybe hear this conversation and they don't know what it is, I just wanted to sort of explain
Hmm.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And of
empath.
course,
Being
back
an empath.
then, yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
darling, I was just going to say back then, I imagine, just like with me, that
yeah.
nobody knew what an empath was.
No, no, I just knew I was sensitive.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I had no clue about, the effect that other people had on me, and their energy, and even how I would talk about myself and think about myself and how that impacted me. I had no idea. I was young, I was naive, but even then, only recently I learned a bit more about how other people's energy affect me. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's every day is still like a learning process when it comes to that. And like you said, when you're an empath and highly sensitive, everything affects you even more than someone who's not an empath or high sensitive. You feel everything a lot more intense, and you also have to
Yeah.
take care of yourself and your energy a lot better and be careful. And that's, I think, also what stimulates for me the conversion disorder, because sometimes I'm like so overwhelmed that I have to like really like decompress, get rid of everyone else's energy, and then I can get back to myself. And so when I don't do that, that's when the conversion disorder is more triggered, and it's like, okay, you need a break, so I will force a
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. You have my genuine, sincere, heartfelt sort of empathy, sympathy, whatever you want to call it, compassion,
Mm.
because I completely, I mean, I haven't walked in your shoes, obviously, but
Mm.
I totally understand the sentiment of the story in
Yeah.
terms of being super sensitive. You
Mm.
know, I do this thing with my clients that I try to, make it a little bit fun. And it's in the spirit of energetic sort of maintenance where I
Mm.
don't know if we spoke about this before, but I just imagine whenever I'm out in
Mm.
public, that I'm walking around in a disco ball, so that a disco ball surrounds me,
Yeah.
because the silver nature
Mm.
of the energy, like the mirror effect,
Yeah.
helps repel or bounce off,
Yeah.
negative energy or too much energy. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like a protection bubble. Yeah.
Yeah, I do that as well. I like sometimes when I feel that another person is actually at in that moment like draining me, I visualize like a protective shield. I'm
Yeah.
like, even if it's just for a few seconds, the other person won't notice it. But then I'm like, okay, I need to protect myself in this moment. I ask the angels to help me, like protect me now, shield me, so this
Yeah.
doesn't affect me so much. It doesn't cost me my energy, and it's
Hmm.
literally just a few seconds, and you just feel because I was always. That's also when you're an empath. I was always so worried with what other people would think of me, and I was always more busy with like what are they thinking instead of what do I actually want, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's also with that spiritual awakening and the therapy for my disorder that I have to put myself first. I have to fill my own cup first, and what flows over is for the rest. But my cup needs to be filled and stay filled.
Mm. So how do you fill your cup? What is your what are the tools that you use to
Mhm.
keep your cup full?
I relax as often as I can. When I feel myself tense up, I literally say to myself, release, let go, release the tension. Because I'm quite a nervous person. That's just like in me. And I always have to like say to myself, okay, there's nothing to be nervous about. So just relax. When I feel myself tense up, I say, relax, because it costs me a lot of energy to be nervous and there's really no need to be. So I really just say to myself, okay, relax, let go. And again, I am safe. And every morning when I wake up, I say to myself, how am I going to honor myself today? What am I going to do to make myself feel better? And how do I want to feel at the end of the day? So I usually pick like a word of the day, and sometimes it's rest, but sometimes it's activity. Sometimes I feel like my body and my brain just needs some outdoor activity. So it really depends on how I feel that day and how I'm going to honor myself that day. How am I going to fill my cup that day? So it can be a
Mhm.
relaxing day where I feel I need rest, and then I can just do a small, like I do some stretching, I do a small meditation where I really just focus on relaxing. And I just love to do yoga and relax. And yeah, I just focus on what I really need that day.
Mhm. And so when you're focusing on what you really need that day,
Mhm.
right? where do you focus? Where does your focus go? What tells you inside you?
Yeah.
Is it an organ? Is it your mind? Is it your heart?
Hmm.
Where's your GPS?
I usually go here.
Right,
Yeah, and I just
right.
ask within, okay, what do I need? And it can be quite a meditative moment. I usually just it's when I just wake up, and I think that's the time when you feel into what you need that day. And usually I'm right. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes my GPS is a bit off. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I need to be a bit more active. And then after an hour, after like breakfast, I'm like, okay, yeah, I was wrong. That's okay. You're allowed to change your mind.
Yeah,
But yeah, I usually just feel into it and ask myself, okay, I just go within and ask, what do I really need right now? And it usually just comes up. It's like you're asking your inner self, and usually it's never wrong.
yes, yeah. Because, so the reason why I asked that, because I think that certainly in my life and in my work, I
Mm.
believe that your relationship with yourself is the most important one that you're ever going to have, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And in order to have a relationship with yourself, you have to have a connection, right?
Hmm.
With yourself.
Yep.
And so some people I know will
Mhm.
feel like a gut thing.
Yeah.
Some people will have an inner feeling, which is the compass that they're on the right track. Like I
Hmm.
have some clients where internal joy, they feel joy and they
Hmm.
know they're on the right track.
Yeah.
Some people, like, so it's different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
How did you discover? What was the process of getting to here? How
Hmm.
did you discover that this was your safe place? That this was your
Hmm. I only
compass?
recently discovered that actually because I've I've loved meditating, and
Hmm.
I always loved to connect to my inner self. I just didn't really know how to do it.
Yeah,
It was just, okay, what feels right? That makes the most sense to me.
yeah.
But recently, not that recently actually, it's about a year ago that I started to use a body dowsing. And then I connect to my higher self and ask my higher self questions where my body is actually my pendulum. And that
Hmm.
was such a great way for me to connect to my higher self or my inner self, whatever you want to call it. I call it my higher
Sure.
self.
Yep.
And I thought, okay, if I can do it with body dowsing, can I do it also with meditation? So I asked about that, and I thought, okay, like, yeah, I can do that. So I went into meditative mode, and I
Yep.
really went to, because you always hear a voice. There's always chatter going on. And of course, that's not your higher self. That's just your ego that's going blah 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 blah. And usually, it's quite negative, that voice. And I was like, okay, I want to go deeper. I want to let those thoughts and that voice fade to the background and let that other voice speak. And I know when it is that other voice and not my ego, because I feel a sense of warmth and love coming over me.
Mm,
It's like,
there it is. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, and you feel it here. It's like your heart is almost like expanding. There's a light
Yeah.
that just, it,
Yeah.
it goes on. And then I
Yeah.
know, I'm like, okay, yeah, now I'm good. The same with my team of light. I love to speak to my guides in that same way. And when I feel that they're there, it's also like a wave of love coming over me.
That's so beautiful.
Mm. Yeah, and the first time that I felt I was connecting to them, I asked them, "Are you there? Show me that you're there. I want to feel that you're there." First, I had like the biggest smile on my face. I felt such a love, and then I started to cry my eyes out because I was like so emotional, and I was like, okay, yeah,
Mm.
that was definitely real. When it moves you, when it feels different when you connect to a higher part of yourself or to your team of light.
Yeah.
Mm.
How long did it take for you to maybe remember or tap into this other, to your higher self and to your team of light, your guides? Like,
Mhm.
how long, like, did it take for that story to unfold in your life?
It was actually quite quick, quicker than I, yeah. Yeah, when I knew they were there and I was there,
Yeah.
it was quite easy for me to tap into that. When I finally knew how to, like I said, I used my body first to communicate. I would ask my team of light, but also myself, just questions about my situation, my health, my body. And it was very accurate. So of course you can always say like, how accurate is it? But it is. There are things that even my doctor wouldn't know yet, and I would ask later on, and it would be because I've been diagnosed with IBS, like irritable bowel syndrome,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I asked my body before going to the doctor, like, is this what I have? And it was a yes, and it was, yeah, correct.
Mm.
So it was
Yeah.
like my body already knew,
Yes.
and my doctor confirmed it later on. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's how, like I said, that's how it started to connect. And later on, uh, it came through a bit more meditation. I still do body dowsing, by the way. I still love that tool and technique, but I also love to meditate and just be present with all that is magical. I think so. Yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't that hard when I knew that they were there and I was here. It was quite easy for me to get into that state. But I'm also claircognizant, so maybe that's also why the connection
Yeah.
for me is a bit easier to make.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, um, there are so many things I want to ask you. Like everything is going through my head, like at the same time.
Maybe we do
um,
need a part two.
we may need to do a live together when you're here in Sydney.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's
Sounds
nice.
good.
Yeah. Maybe go down to the harbour bridge or opera house or
Oh
something.
yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
anyway.
To be continued.
um, so you have this really like 3D physical thing that happens.
Mhm.
It overstimulates your mind, the fear matrix, the survival instinct. I imagine all your adrenals, your central nervous system, everything is overactive.
Yeah.
And then you take the journey of, I have to go within to understand what's happening
Yeah.
in order to come out better on the other side and like be reborn.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
the universe is forcing you to connect with yourself again. I lost myself in that whole process because that conversion disorder, it wasn't until actually a few years ago that I knew that it was a conversion disorder. Before that, I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I was diagnosed with maybe epilepsy, maybe it's that, but then I said, no, it's not that. I've had brain scans, I've had heart scans, everything imaginable. And luckily, there was nothing wrong with me. But on the other hand, there was something wrong with me. Just people just didn't know what it was. They didn't have a
yeah,
name for it. So yeah, that was frustrating and lonely because no one knows what you're going through because it doesn't have a name. You can't voice it, and that's yeah. You have to go inward. It forces you to be your own best friend because you have to.
yeah. And that's such a, I mean, let's face it, it's
Mm.
not pleasant when the universe has to force your hand, right?
Oh yeah, it's not.
It's not pleasant, let's face it, like it's just
Yeah.
not, right?
Oh yeah, it's not
But
nice.
what's really, what I think is extraordinary is, even though the hand
Mhm.
of God is forced
Yeah.
upon thee,
Yeah.
um, I just want to make this point about two things. Number
Mhm.
one, you and I both have podcasts, and you and I both talk about mental health aspects and the importance of holistic health and well-being,
Mhm.
etc., etc.
Yeah.
But there's no getting around the fact that work has to be done by the person. There are
Abs-
no shortcuts.
No shortcuts.
There
No.
is nothing that you and I can say to
Yeah.
make someone's life
Mhm.
change. We can maybe ignite an idea or have
Yeah.
them remember something,
Yeah.
but they still have to do the work, right? Just like I did,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
just like you're describing, right?
Yeah.
Nobody could walk those 10 years for you.
Exactly.
Nobody. You
Exactly.
had
You
to
have to
walk.
experience it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is extraordinary. And then the second point I want to take from everything that you've said so far is everything that you needed,
Mhm.
you already had inside
Yeah.
of you. The
Yeah.
strength, the determination, the knowledge, the faith, the love,
Yeah.
all of it is already inside of you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
think the universe
just,
only gives you what you can handle.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I
Even if it's
just,
very shit.
yeah, yes. But that's what I get from your story. Like
Mhm.
as you're talking, I'm like, yeah, like everything was already there. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was like really crap circumstances, but your journey to rediscovering your divine self and reconnecting with
Yeah.
that part of yourself
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah. It was. I don't see it that way. It's because maybe because I live it, and I
Yeah.
know all the ickiness and tears and struggles and insecurities and all the lows and the lower than lows. So, and because I'm still in it, almost out of it, but still in it, then you don't see it as such. I can see, when I had my agoraphobia, and that lasted 10 years, and like my first trip was to Paris, and I could actually go fear free to Paris. And that was
Wow.
my first trip and I was 2025, I think I was. And I went there with a friend and was like celebrating the fact that I could actually go abroad without anxiety. So I look at that time now as such a learning experience and
Yeah.
one that I'm grateful for because now I can share with people what I went through, what it was like, and how I overcame it. But I'm still in this conversion disorder situation and I'm still not completely healed. So then it's a bit harder to look at it with a bit more
Sure.
distance and feel what it has brought you. I mean, I'm already quite there, but not fully, not like when I had my agoraphobia. I can look at that with a lot more distance, objectivity, and be like, oh, yeah, that was definitely a hard experience, but experience I'm grateful for. And here I'm still like in the middle of it, still growing, still learning, still experiencing, still insecure sometimes, like, am I doing this right? And I have my setbacks, like we all do. No day is a perfect day, but I can look at it more like, okay, what can I learn here? How do I need to reconnect more? Because, like I said, I still have my setbacks, and then I'm like, okay, what did I do wrong? I definitely overstepped my own boundaries because that's usually what it is,
Mm,
disrespect of my own boundaries. Because I was always quite driven to well, perform, I would say, to do instead of be. And I
mm,
know now that I have to let that go a lot more. It's like, okay, I thought when you are productive, you are worthy. And I think that
mm,
still stems from my period of agoraphobia. I couldn't finish my school. I didn't have a job like
Right.
teenagers and people in the early 20s naturally do, when they are fully healthy. And I didn't have that. So I always felt like the need to, like I had some time I needed to catch up. I was behind. That's what it felt
Yeah.
like to me. So I always thought, okay, when I'm productive, I am worthy because I have a lot of catching up to do. But that changed when, again, talked to my inner self. I had that beautiful connection, and my inner self even said to me, "You were never behind. You were never behind. You learned a lot." And in that time, when you were struggling with your phobia and you had to deal with mental health, your friends were still at school and discussing which boy was cuter. You were never behind. You were actually quite ahead. And
Ahead. Yeah.
I don't mean that in a like disregard to them, of course. But I had to deal with things they maybe still don't have to deal with. And so I had to be faced with quite adult problems, adult issues. And I had to deal with that, well, not necessarily on my own, but still you have to do the work yourself. So
Yeah.
still it felt like I had to do it on my own. So yeah, like I said, my higher self said to me, you don't have to prove your worthiness just by being productive and productive and productive. Quit the doing and focus more on being. And that's what I went like, pew, like, okay, wow. And that's still something that I have to learn because I still have the tendency to want to prove myself. I don't even know like to who I have to prove it, maybe to myself that, oh yeah, I really can do it. I can work this many hours and be productive. But I know there's no need anymore.
I want to suggest something and see what you think about this.
Mhm.
Well, actually, I'm going to suggest two things. The first one has to do with the collective conditioning, right?
Mhm.
Around exactly what you said, that particular value
Yeah,
around if I'm productive, I'm worthy,
yeah,
right? The doing bit.
yeah.
Do you do you feel that that particular value, it's a conditioning, obviously.
Mhm.
We are not born with that particular belief system,
Yeah,
right? That's a conditioned belief system, right?
yeah, yeah.
Do you think that that is a familiar, that's a family belief system, or is it bigger than that? Family and society.
I think it's both. And I recently talked to my mother about it because my mother, she has a chronic illness and she couldn't work for most of her life because of
Right.
that illness. And it was the rest of my family, like aunts, uncles, they would always ask, "Why aren't you working? You can't see anything from the outside because it's a chronic illness that you see on the inside. It's colitis, it is similar to Crohn's disease."
Right.
And she always had to explain herself and again, like
Mm.
proof of her worth despite not being able to have a full-time job. And I
Oh my
said to my
gosh.
mom, I think we are quite similar as well. She's also high sensitive and an empath. And I know I have that from her because she always felt the need to explain herself, prove herself. And
Mm.
I always said to mom, like you are worthy even without having a job. And she felt free after like her retirement age, where she no longer had to explain herself, like why she's not working. And then
Wow.
she was like finally like, oh, I don't have to anymore. I'm like at the retirement age where I don't have to explain myself, prove myself worthy, and like yeah, I have that same struggle as well. I always had to explain myself why didn't I go to school? Why didn't I finish school? Or why didn't I have a job or a full time job or a family, just whatever people throw at you. I'm like, yeah, this is my path. I walk it. I walk it alone, and I decide what it looks like. And yeah, I don't have to prove myself anymore. It just I am worthy without being productive and proving myself.
Yeah, being productive in that traditional way, like of
Yeah.
the only way you can be productive is, 9 to 5, go to work, and
Right.
somebody else pays your salary, right? That's the
Yeah.
only real thing or
And
valuable
preferably
thing.
have a kids as well, and don't complain about having a kid and, and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my the other thing that I wanted to say and get your thoughts on, if you don't mind, and your insights is, I guess, bigger picture,
Mm.
talking about sort of more spiritual purpose.
Mm.
How do you feel about the idea that you chose to have this journey
Mm.
in this lifetime, and part of your journey is to help break those
Mm.
societal belief systems by actually being forced to do the opposite?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think when I heard the term soul contract, at first I was like, really? Did I really like literally sign up for this? I never asked for this shit to happen to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was like, are
Duh.
you kidding? But when you think about it deeper, because that's of course your first reaction, your first thought of like, nah, no way. And
Yeah,
like I said, I didn't ask for this to happen to me. But in hindsight, it makes sense because I'm here now.
yeah,
I'm a very spiritual being. I'm connecting to myself in ways that I never even thought possible like 5 years ago. I mean, I was
yeah,
already interested in spirituality. I read books on Buddhism and so on, and I did yoga, but it was still quite surface
yeah,
spirituality.
yeah,
It didn't really went deeper. I didn't have that connection, and I think this all forced me to find that connection. I needed
mm,
all this to happen to me to have that connection with myself again and find that spiritual path that I was meant to walk and help others, guide them on their spiritual path.
yeah.
Mm.
I really, I just, I mean, deepest gratitude for the work and for who you are, because that's what does it. It's,
Mhm.
people like you that are breaking old paradigms, those old contracts of the 3D matrix. Of course, I'm
Mhm.
talking about energetic contracts and those
Yeah,
societal belief systems and things like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Because or we just have to say, your mum never had any of those options because there
yeah,
were no other options for women to be
exactly.
productive in the world, right?
Oh,
Other than being wives and,
yeah,
having kids and
yeah.
not saying there's anything wrong with it, but their choices were minimal,
Oh, yeah, very limited. Yeah,
very limited, right?
yeah.
Whereas in this day and age,
Oh,
we
yeah.
are doing the world, we are changing the world by creating different realities and opportunities.
And holding space for other women who aren't there yet. And I'm so grateful that I can say that I've helped my mom heal a lot
Yeah.
of old wounds. And she said to me, "I'm so grateful that you have helped me heal from certain things." And I'm like, wow, if maybe that's the only
Mm.
reason why I had to go through what I go through, to help my mom heal what she needed to heal. And that alone, I'm super grateful for.
Yeah, honey, and that's like you breaking those ancestral patterns, and just
Mhm.
one person in a family has to change, and that breaks that cycle.
Yeah, and I'm super proud of that.
Congratulations. That's really amazing. Yeah,
Thank you.
kudos to you. Even though the journey can be super shit sometimes, let's face
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, definitely. With a capital S. Yeah.
oh yeah.
Um, so, okay. So tell us now, if you don't mind, a little bit about the work that you are doing with others, your business and
Mhm.
your podcast, etc.
Yeah. The podcast Behind Your Eyes is where I had the wonderful opportunity to meet and interview you, of course. And yeah, Behind
Thank
Your
you.
Eyes really stems from my passion for journalism, because I've been a journalist for about 7-8 years before I went into the coaching industry. And I wanted to combine those two and connect to people. And also, like, the people who watch my interviews, I want them to know, like, we have also had our struggles. Even though we have a business, some people have a successful business and are very spiritual and have overcome a lot. But I just wanted to show them, like, you're not alone. We're also, we also had our struggles. You can't see it on the outside, what people have been through. But when people tell about domestic abuse or depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and they all now have a successful coaching or spiritual business, and like, I just hope it's like an example or inspiration for other women, especially you who are watching, to know you can do this too. We're not special. You can do this as well. So yeah, that's really my motivation behind your eyes. And I also have my vlog, Susie Soul Snacks, where it's like a 5 minutes, sometimes shorter, a vlog that I make on all things spirituality, spiritual growth. And I just wanted to almost simplify what spirituality is in these short vlogs, and just have them, be a bit like with a wink, I say. That's why I call it Susie Soul Snacks.
I love that name, by the way. As soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's so cute.
Yeah. It's fun to be a bit lighthearted, don't take it
Yes.
all too seriously. And I still want it to be, of course, inspirational, motivational, and know that, okay, you can use manifestation as well, or you can have these healing habits. And because I really want to express things that have helped me, but I want to bring them in a bit more lighthearted way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I do with my coaching as well. I mean, I have a course called Healing Habits where I focus on just the basics, because I know healing itself, especially self-healing, it can be overwhelming. So I wanted to create a course that just focuses on the basics without the overwhelm. So I'm like, okay, this is what has helped me, and you can use whatever tool. And it's like, it's EFT, it's journaling, it's affirmations, it's breath work, but I explain them in a way that you can use them every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think that practical approach to
Yeah,
doing spiritual work is really important, because it has to ground in this reality. Otherwise,
yeah,
it's too out there, just sort of a
yeah,
mind matrix, and it's not
exactly.
really grounded in the physical reality. And it
Yeah,
needs,
yeah.
yeah,
And we lead busy lives, so and I have respect for that. That, we all have jobs or kids, and we have a lot going on. So I thought, okay, you can just focus on like one of these techniques
yeah,
a day and try it out for 1 week, 2 weeks, and it just would literally take 5 minutes of your day. You can just start your day by doing some tapping, just clear your energy, and that's it. You're good to
yeah,
go.
yeah. Sounds
Yeah.
amazing. And what's the I don't know why I want to say this, but these are literally the words that are coming, that I'm sort of hearing and seeing in my third eye: the spiritual climate in Netherlands.
Mhm.
What's it, how's the collective, like, where is it at?
Well, the climate itself is quite shit, but the spiritual climate is no, it's improving. It's a lot less woo woo and a
Uh-huh.
more accepted. It's a lot more accepted than it was several years ago. Before it was just like, oh, you're up in the air and
Yeah.
we're considered a bit crazy if you talk to angels or have crystals in your house. And I'm like,
Right.
don't diss my crystals.
Yep.
So yeah,
Amen,
no, it's
sister. Yep.
it's a lot more accepted. There are even like festivals that focus completely on spirituality and where you can have yoga sessions and meditations together. And yeah, it's a lot more open. I think also COVID had to do with that, because we were forced to look within and be by ourselves and not connect to people. We couldn't connect to people except for like this
Yeah.
on Zoom. So you were practically forced to go within and
Yeah.
become a bit more spiritual. I think it has definitely changed for the better. I think people are a lot more open about their own spiritual search.
Uh-huh. Yes, good. Okay. That's really good to hear. I can definitely, I think collectively, overall, there's
Mm-hmm.
been a bit of a quantum leap, although I
Yeah,
do also think that Mother Gaia is still purging thousands of years of, a really
yeah,
dense, dark energy out of her
yeah.
system. Yeah, and we've
I
still
feel
got.
it's getting lighter. I see there was a lot of dark, but I feel it's getting lighter.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Mm.
I think over the next sort of decade, few years,
Yeah,
it's going to be very interesting. Yeah, really good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we're all part of like raising that vibration together.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm so glad that these topics are so much more readily accepted in the
Mhm.
collective these days than what they ever
Yeah,
used to be. Because,
yeah.
I started to learn meditation in 1989
Mm.
when nobody was talking about meditation or spirituality, like you had to be
Yeah,
in a cult and ready to
right,
shoot yourself in order to, if you were connected with meditation or something.
right.
But so I've seen a massive change over the last, couple of decades. Certainly
Yeah.
since the year 2000, 2008, 7, 8 were a
Mhm.
huge quantum leap. And then 2012. And so it's just speeding up. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I think there's also, of course, with the help of internet, I think a lot of I also said that at the start of our conversation. It's like those who are already in quite a high vibe are being like drawn like magnets to each other, and I
Yeah.
feel that a lot more this last year.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
More and more people have come together to create a global community,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I feel the shift happening, and it's amazing, and I'm very proud to be a part of that.
Yes, me too.
Mm.
Me too.
Yeah, let's raise the
And
vibration together, Diana.
we are so honored. We don't even have to acknowledge it out loud. It's just happening.
Yeah.
It's just happening. Okay, so we spoke about agoraphobia and your
Mm.
first trip to Paris. And here you are taking this huge leap of faith and traveling to the other side of the world, like
Oh
literally,
yeah.
like
Yes.
Australia, New Zealand, Asian countries, Japan,
Yeah.
China.
Yeah.
What is going on with you?
Oh yeah. Let loose.
See you later, Netherlands.
Yeah. 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 Like I said, I have my roots here, but I'm dying to see more. Yeah, I'm dying to
Yeah.
explore more. And New Zealand has always been a dream of mine. Like I'm total Lord of the Rings nerd. So yeah, it's I literally have a vision board right in front of me, and like New Zealand is on there. So I made that vision board I think about 3-4 years ago, and like last year I actually booked the flights. So I like literally like cried of joy. I was so happy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to Hobbiton.
Yay! You want to be a hobbit for a bit, huh?
Oh yeah, I already have like the perfect height for it. I'm 5'2", so I'm 5 foot nothing.
Okay.
I always said I'm a
Oh
hobbit
my
sized
gosh.
person, so yeah.
Oh, perfect. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I'm so
Yeah, so
excited.
you'll be moving in, right? You're sending your furniture over?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I go to Bag End.
Right, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
so excited.
That's amazing. That's so
Yeah,
great.
yeah, it's such a dream come true. Like when I started to watch the movie, like the first movie, of course, Fellowship of the Ring, I was still living at home with my agoraphobia,
Yeah.
and literally like Middle Earth became my escape. It was like my, it was it gave me so much joy to watch it. And I'm, like I said, I'm a total nerd. I can quote the movies. I've seen them more than 50 times. I'm like such a nerd because at the time it was literally my escape. And I remember that when I had my first therapy session for my agoraphobia, because I finally found the courage to go outside to actually visit a therapist, even though
Yeah.
I was like in the back seat, like shaking, and my parents were
Yeah.
bringing me there. And I remember my therapist saying to me, we want to have a goal to work to.
Right.
What is your goal? And I said, okay, my goal is to see the Return of the King in cinema because I wasn't able to go to a cinema. So the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers I haven't seen in cinema. So I was like, okay, I want to see the Return of the King in a cinema.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do it, but we worked towards it. And on like the final day that it was in the cinema, I went to a small local cinema. There was literally like no one there. And I was sitting by the door, by the exit,
Yeah.
and I did it. I watched it, and I
Wow.
was so proud. I was like, and the Return of King is really one of the best movies ever made. And
I agree. Yeah.
I was overjoyed that I got to see it in cinema. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Amazing. And now you're actually going to travel there and see
yeah.
it in person.
Oh
Wow.
yeah,
So,
it's
where do
special.
you have to fly into to go to Hobbit Town? What do
Well,
you go to Auckland?
no, I travel. Well, I start traveling in the South Island. So
Oh,
I
okay.
go to Queenstown first,
Yeah.
and then I
Okay.
travel up to Christchurch, and then I fly from Christchurch to Wellington, and then I drive to Mata Mata. It's called. It's I think about an hour south of Auckland. So
Right. Okay.
we travel north, and then I leave from Auckland to the Netherlands again.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Yeah.
Amazing.
27-hour flight, but it will be worth
Well,
it, I
yeah.
know.
Yeah. That's just that's just how it is when you're traveling
Yeah.
from Europe or
I,
to
I
Europe.
just hope they have the extended editions of all three movies in the airplane, so I can just watch all the extended editions there, and then I'm good to go.
Yeah. Yeah, when we were traveling from Yugoslavia, we traveled from our town to Belgrade. That
Mhm.
was 3 hours, and then from Belgrade to Frankfurt, and
Mhm.
then we had to wait the whole day to fly from Frankfurt to Dubai to then
Oh,
fly to Melbourne and then Sydney. So that the trip was 48 hours altogether.
oh my gosh!
Took
Wow.
2 days. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
crazy.
insane. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm already thinking now, like, oh my gosh, the flight to Sydney. I have a changeover in Singapore, but still it's like
right.
21 and a half hours.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh. The furthest I've ever I've ever flown was like Tallinn in Estonia. That's like 3 hours. So I'm really like, how am I going to survive?
Yeah, gonna have to pack some books.
Yeah, I have a book, I have a magazine, I have puzzles, I have ear headphones. I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah. And luckily
yeah,
they
it's
have
cool.
starting this month they have like free Wi-Fi on Singapore Airlines, so that's good.
Oh, cool. Oh, that'll be good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So that's good. I'm happy.
yeah, cool. All right. So, um, wow, we've been talking for an hour. Can you believe it?
Time just flies by when you're having fun. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so then in closing of this
Yes.
beautiful conversation, my darling, I want to say two things, and then I'm going to ask you a question. First of all, your English is amazing. I don't know where that comes from, but
No,
your
me
English is so
neither.
good. It's so good. You're so easy to understand. So
Thank you.
that's really lovely. The second thing is we're going to have all of your websites and everything underneath
Mhm.
when we stream this.
Yeah.
And my question to you in closing is, what would be your um, words of wisdom to somebody that's maybe at the beginning stages of their self-awareness and spiritual awakening?
Mhm. I love the quote, feel it all to heal it all, because that's where it starts. You don't have to push away the negative thoughts, they will come back. It's like pushing a ball on the water. When you push it on the water and push it, it comes back up. So don't be embarrassed about feeling negative, anxious. It's okay. The negative feelings are there to be felt and acknowledged as well. So don't be afraid to feel it all, to heal it all.
Amazing. I love that. And on that note, I want to sincerely thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That was a wonderful conversation. I'm so happy to have had the chance to get to know you a little bit better and to
Thank you.
get to connect with your wisdom. And if you don't mind, can you just, when we finish the recording, just stay here so that you and I
Oh,
can
yeah,
finish our
absolutely. I'm not just
conversation?
going to leave you
Okay.
like that.
Okay. And if, okay, so I'm just gonna finish recording and just say goodbye to the audience. And then I'll come back to you. Okay.
Awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So I sincerely hope that you enjoyed that conversation with Susanne. Isn't she just stunning and amazing, and so much wisdom and journeying and the depth of her knowledge? If you have any questions for Susanne or you want to connect with her, like I said, there will be all the relevant links available for you on the day that we stream this conversation. And I hope you enjoy it and get something out of it for yourself. May it ignite your soul, may it ignite your heart, and so much love to you. Mwah! And we will see you soon. Bye bye for now.